perilous times. When I hear from Klaus Schwab and he says we're going to globally push the reset button, have a great reset, and the World Economic Forum says you will own nothing, have no privacy, and be happy.
Under the new rules provided by the COVID-19 emergency, many other elected leaders were empowered to show their true colors. Interesting how they all marched in perfect lockstep while chanting the same slogans.
This pandemic has provided an opportunity.
Here we are now with an economy in crisis, but with an incredible opportunity.
It's certainly a major crisis, but it also offers us a unique opportunity.
Unprecedented opportunity to rethink and reset.
The great opportunity for reset.
Opportunity for us to reset.
This was a book published in 1997 by a DC think tank tied with high-ranking, powerful individuals. It was funded by wealthy corporations, the NSA, and other representatives of the ruling class in D.C. And they made, in 1993 to 5, when they were putting their ideas together, it was finally published in 97, they made predictions as futurists. And that's not a proxy for prophecy, I'll say it again. But this is what the power elite are expecting to see, and they called the name of the book 2025. And I've had so many people listen to a segment like this, and they're like, I can't find the book, Brother Ritsema. Because, if you just Google book 2025, you're going to have a hard time finding it. Email me, and I will send you a link to the PDF of the book, scottritsema@gmail.com. I'll send you a link if you want to look at it. But I'm going to summarize what's in this book. What predictions did these futurists make? And I'm going to share with you a bunch that they got right, and then a few that haven't yet fully transpired, that if they are also right about those ones, we can expect a likelihood of these additional items to be coming our way in the near future. Now, they were pretty uncanny with some of their predictions, which is why I bring this to people's attention, because they got some interesting things very right. First thing they said, and this one wasn't quite as hard, but they said the majority of the world's population will become metropolitan by the year 2025. The tipping point was reached in 2009, urban versus rural. By the way, did I tell you the name of this group? This is fascinating. They called themselves Project 2025. That's enough reason for me to look into it, okay? Meager GDP growth. They said in the coming years, in the 2000s, we're going to have meager GDP growth into 2025, and they named it 2% average. How are you going to predict the average growth of the gross domestic product over the next 25, 30 years? They nailed it. They said it would be 2%, and the usual since 2006 has been 2 to 2.5%. And they were saying this at a time when it was 4.5% in the mid-90s. We were having massive economic growth at that time. They also predicted a automobile that would get, and they didn't understand equivalency of MPG, but they said 120 mile per gallon cars, and then you get the Chevy Bolt, the Toyota Prius, equivalency to 128 EPG, 119 EPG, right in that same frame. Now this one really got my attention. They said, and they named the year 2020 for this one for some reason. They said, going to the office will become a thing of the past for a large portion of the office-based population. And they named 2020 and said, we expect about 40% of the office workers will be telecommuting and working from home. And those of you who followed the data on this, during COVID, we got to 41% of the office-based workforce working from home at least part of the time. They said 40%. It ended up at 41%. There could be there are coincidences. There are. But this is also quite uncanny. They predicted a major epidemic. They predicted that there will be genetically engineered vaccines. They predicted there will be synthetic foods. We now have lab-grown meat, impossible meat, cricket protein, these kinds of new novel foods, if you can call them that, counterfeit food. They said that supranational government, in other words, governments that govern multiple states like the European Union, they say it will be prominent and effective, though not completely. It's like, boy, that actually pretty well describes the rise and struggles of the European Union superstate. It is prominent and effective, though not completely. Reminds me of Daniel 2. What did Daniel 2 say? That they will attempt to cleave, even through mingling the seed of men, but they shall not cleave. And that was the history of Europe. Same thing here. Terrorism will rise, they said, fulfilled in a major way, of course, 9/11 through especially 2015. They predicted virtual communities globally before it was called social media, virtual communities globally. They predicted face-to-face communication will be available to any place, at any time, from anywhere, for which I am so grateful, because I can see my family today after we're done, if they're not in bed. Yeah, they saw this coming. They also said secular substitutes for traditional religious beliefs and rituals will exist for a substantial portion of the developed world. That's kind of what we just covered with the virtue signaling and all of that. They said sustainability will be the central concept and organizing principle of in environmental management. You might remember the 2030 agenda that was launched in 2015. It was all about sustainability, involving that global warming and all of that. Artificial intelligence devices will flower as aids to professionals. They said this in 1997. This one literally became a reality in the last year or two with ChatGPT and everybody going AI and professional world. Smart homes. They have an entire chapter on how everything in the home will be connected to the Internet of Things, the smart everything, the smart home. And so that certainly transpired as well. I'm going to just go fast through the rest. Nanotech devices, genomics in medicine, vegetarianism will be brought to the fore for health, environmental, and ethical reasons. Machine learning will surpass that of human beings' ability to learn. Family size will be below replacement rates in most advanced nations. Family size will be above replacement rates in the less developed world. A worldwide popular culture will emerge. National universal health care will be a big thing. The cost of energy will rise. Computers will translate human languages. Environmental degradation, especially in the developing world. More schooling. The multinational corporation will be the world's dominant business form. Privatization of many highways. Population will rise from 5.6 billion to 8.4 billion, which they pretty much nailed. So they got some stuff right, huh? That's significant. And some with the conspiracy lenses on, you're going, I don't think these are predictions. These are plans that are being announced. So take your pick on your approach to this, but it is what it is. A lot of correct calls. If you've ever tried to predict things that are going on in the world, and you realize this is not easy. This is not easy. Futurists, okay, the weatherman can't tell me whether it's going to rain 3 days from now or not. So I'm a little skeptical of that, but hey, they nailed a lot of things. They're not prophets. This is not false prophecy because it's not prophecy. It's people in the secular world watching trends and trying to make these calls. So they got those right. Now I want to share with you, under the theme of the afternoon, now is the time to prepare, that if they get these next ones correct in the coming short period of time, I guess, I'll give them a little leash past 2025 for reasons you'll see in just a second, but here's where you want to brace yourself with the security on the foundation that is Jesus Christ. This, what I'm sharing with you, is pulled from a seminar that we released earlier this year through Belt of Truth Ministries, and it's called I Will Not Be Moved. And we're going to end with Psalm 46. It's going to be wonderful about how we will not be moved. But I got to level with you and break it to you. If these things were to transpire as these guys expected, we would expect World War III. They actually made that call. Nuclear device causing widespread contamination, additional epidemics, cyber attacks, or in their words, computer-based socially significant crimes such as tampering with air traffic control or national security systems. That actually has happened this year. That happened since I put these slides together. A global currency and mass starvation. These are not random dudes just throwing stuff at the wall. This is well-funded, well-connected DC think tank in the national security apparatus. And then when I look at the WEF, you've got the angrier world that Klaus Schwab says is coming, an angrier world where we will have more scarcity of food and of energy resources. Then you get also this global currency thing. The WEF is also calling for that. So it's like a lot of the things these guys are predicting are now being called for or are occurring already. The WEF says, is it time to introduce a global currency? Prophecy students, do you find the notion of a global currency to be significant perhaps, or a central bank digital currency, everything going digital, cash being abolished? That's the direction we are moving. Additional epidemics. This was interesting. Do you remember an interview between Bill Gates and Stephen Colbert in 2020 where Bill Gates said, all the things we're learning, all the tools we're rolling out to deal with a pandemic right now, we're learning how to do this so that when pandemic 2 comes, we will have our strategies in place. And when he said that, I totally had forgotten about this till I went back and looked at the clip. Colbert asked him, what do you expect? This was in 2020. He said, what do you expect 5 years from now? And that was when he said, pandemic 2. So could be just they're shooting the breeze and they didn't mean that. Or maybe Stephen Colbert is actually a major guest on a prominent Jesuit talk show. And he's like his spiritual mentor. So maybe these people actually are linked in to the power elite and can have a glimpse into what's coming next. But cyber attacks are another one that was mentioned there. And that again came out of the World Economic Forum. I mentioned Klaus Schwab. He said a cyber pandemic that will make COVID-19 look like a minor disturbance. But this guy actually puts the time frame on it again. He says geopolitical instability makes a catastrophic cyber event likely in the next, how many years? 2 years. And what year is it that he said that? 2023. Now, I'm not saying we're going to have that in the next 2 years from 2023, but he's saying it's to be expected. It is likely, was his words for that. And then interestingly, way back in 2014, there was a video game that came out, and the script writer for this video game was a prominent futurist within the national security state. His name was Peter Singer, and he was known by the Wall Street Journal as the top Pentagon futurist. And he was the script writer for a video game that was released in 2014. The video game is set in the future in the year 2025 again. And the theme of the game is to prevent a catastrophic cyber attack from occurring in a new Cold War context with China. I was literally just listening to an interview yesterday or 2 days ago where the guy was like, all the people in D.C. are talking about war with China in 2027. That's like the big talk of the town. He was kind of leaking this out on a podcast. Did somebody see that? You know what I'm talking about. So they're gearing up for it, and there have been these kind of signals coming. So for our purposes, again, it's just be ready. Be ye also ready. And you know what? We should always be ready. If all of this content and data from these futurists and these leaks and these weird placements, if they all pointed to like 2035, like I wouldn't change my life one bit right now, right? Enoch walked with God for 300 years, and then God took him. And we are the Enochs. So we don't need the urgency, but the urgency can give us the collective poke in the eye wake-up call that sometimes we need to say, now is the time, the name of this message. Have you ever read in the four horsemen of the apocalypse? They're of course showing us church history, but it's interesting that there's war. The first one represents war, the second one famine, and the third one plague, right? And then the fourth one represents war and famine and plague. It's like all three. So there's a culmination effect, kind of like prophecy intensifies and repeats and enlarges. Well, that's the three are right there in a literal sense. War, famine, and plague are 8 of the things that the 1990s Project 2025 said to expect. Then another 2025 reference, this is outside of those guys, those Project 2025 futurists. This is a ODNI document from 2008, if I remember correctly. The Office of the Director of National Intelligence oversees the 18 known intelligence agencies of the United States government. And they put out a document called Global Trends 2025. And they targeted 2025 also as the collapse of the Western financial system. And they also said, interestingly, secularism will decline. Now, who would think to make that call? Secularism has been on the rise for 200 years since the French Revolution. And they said, no, it's actually going to decrease, and you will find religious organizations and movements that will increase in power. So in the context of financial collapse, you have secularism rising and religiousness increasing, counterfeit revivals perhaps, papal reaching across the arm with the apostate Protestantism and spiritualism, perhaps? Not perhaps, we know that's coming. When I hear religious organizations rising and authoritarian enactments rising, that's another thing they said. They said liberalism will fade. And that makes me think of the papacy for sure, especially when you go to their number 7, which I didn't get to yet, did I? Oh, this is the best. So they had 8 things, right? We had 6 on the screen. Here's number 7 and number 8. Number 7, and I'm keeping the papacy up on the screen for reasons you, I think, could fill in the blanks there, read between the lines. But secular futurists from the 90s, calling themselves Project 2025, who got all those things right, like some of them to the exact number, they said expect by the year, around the year 2025, universal monitoring of business transactions and smart ID cards. Ready for it? I've taken a picture in the book, underlined stars, so you can see it right out of the book. Smart ID cards that everybody will carry, including your religious and organizational affiliations. Identification cards will be universal, perhaps even key data from one's genome, religious and organizational affiliations listed on everybody's smart ID card in a time of universal CBDC, cashless society, financial collapse, rise of religious powers, war, pandemics, etc. Take a deep breath and be still and know that He is God. I don't know how this hits every person in here. To me, I get excited. I'm like, the Lord is coming soon. And I already knew that, but now I know it even more, all right? But it's not just for that moment of, woohoo, yeah, we're seeing Bible prophecy fulfilled. The Bible is so true. Jesus is coming so soon. We're going to be in heaven so soon. It's not just for that. It's for winning souls of the lost. We've got to take seriously our mission, our calling, our charge to be reaching people with the gospel. This is the time to become, my favorite part. What is the seal? Do you know the quote from Last Day Events? The people of God are sealed in their foreheads. And what is this? Okay, what did I call this seminar? I will not be moved. I don't think Dr. Leela even knew that this seminar was like, I will not be moved. We didn't even talk about it. She's like, we're going to do a weekend called Standing Faithful. I'm like, yeah, let's do it, Standing Faithful. And we're planning this. And it dawns on me, like, I had almost an identical title, like, I will not be moved. But here's why this gets me so excited. Because the people of God are sealed in their foreheads. It is not any seal or mark that can be seen, but a settling into the truth both intellectually and spiritually, so they can not be moved. God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Therefore will not we fear. Though the earth be removed, and though the mountains be carried into the midst of the sea, though the waters thereof roar and be troubled, though the mountains shake with the swelling thereof, there is a river, the streams whereof shall make glad the city of God, the holy place of the tabernacles of the Most High. God is in the midst of her. Who is her? Us. God is in the midst of her. She shall not be moved. God shall help her in that right early. His purposes know no haste and no delay. That right early He will help you. The heathen raged. The kingdoms were moved. He uttered His voice. The earth melted. Whew. That's going to happen. Literally, the earth will melt after all this. It's an apocalyptic prophecy there in Psalm 46. And it carries us through the last days with the assurance that you shall not be moved.